Hello and welcome to the Tennessee Informer. Thanks for watching. Thank you for joining us tonight. You may remember a few weeks ago when we advertised the Raw Milk Summit hosted by the Gorham Homestead in Dickson County. Well, our guest tonight is the organizer and host of the event, Dawn Gorham. She is here tonight to tell us about the homestead and what all they raise. And believe it or not, surprise, surprise, even our government, our state government that is, finds it necessary to harass homesteaders over the issue of raw milk. Dawn will join us in just a minute, but before we bring her on, here is a message from our sponsor, LifeWave. Live long, live well, live young. We will be right back.
Light, the energy of life itself. Since the beginning of time, light has sustained us, fueled our growth, and shaped the world. Even Einstein recognized that everything we are is made of light. But what if we could harness the light within us, not just to live, but to renew, restore, and rejuvenate? Introducing LifeWave X39, the first product in the world that activates stem cells using our body's own light. Backed by clinical research, multiple patents, and over 10 years of stem cell research, a revolutionary wearable light technology that unlocks the power of activating our own stem cells with a single, safe, affordable, non-transdermal patch that puts you back in control of how you look, feel, and perform. Unlike drugs or chemicals, X39 works naturally, awakening your body's ability to heal and thrive. It's time to unlock your full potential, restore your vitality, and embrace a healthier, more vibrant you.
And now to our guest, Dawn Gorham. Thank you for being with us today. How are you doing?
Doing well. How are you?
Oh, doing fine. So how did you get into all this? Were you raised on a farm? Is this something you always wanted to do?
Well, I was raised on a homestead before homesteading was cool. My grandparents were in Camden, and they had a small holding where they raised enough food to sell off to pay for what they kept and ate for themselves. And so I spent a lot of my summers with my grandparents, and those are some of the best memories. And I wanted as far away from that as I could get in my early 20s. So I moved to Nashville, lived in the suburbs, did all that, suburb mom stuff. And as I hit my 30s, I started getting more concerned about health. My son, we thought he was autistic at the time. He wasn't, but ended up not being. But so that took me down the natural food route, and which ended up circling me back to my roots of, wanting to can my food and grow my food. And I ended up with a bunch of little raised beds in the back of my suburban house. I squeezed as much in as I could on 1/10 of an acre. And then, so we had chickens back there, and that was kind of contraband, but I gave the neighbors eggs to keep them quiet. We were an HOA. But eventually we outgrew that, and I had discovered raw milk before that and bought my milk from a raw milk farmer in Nashville. And I eventually got to the point where I wanted my own milk cow and knew I couldn't have that, and I wasn't going to get away with that in an HOA. So we started looking for property, and we ended up out here in Dickson. And within the first 6 months, I bought my first milk cow. And now we raise and grow, a lot of our own food, almost all of our own protein, but a lot of our vegetables and all that stuff I can all summer long, and teach homesteading workshops. I teach canning. I teach cheese making. We do some herbal remedy workshops. I do kids camps where I spent 2 weeks teaching little kids how to, make their own mayonnaise, and teaching them how to make strawberry jam and butter and all that fun stuff.
So how long have you been at the homestead now?
We have been here in Dickson for 5 years, but I've been homesteading for probably 20 years now.
Okay, so you raise a little bit of everything, and so how much of it do you sell to other people versus just use for yourself?
We go through about 5 or 6 gallons of milk a week ourselves, and then the rest is for our herd share members. So we probably have 150 total families in our herd share. So we provide milk to them, and I provide eggs. So we have duck eggs and chicken eggs. We probably keep a dozen or two of those a week. And then just whatever. I mean, everything, 'tis the season for everything. I may do a lot of one thing one year and then not a lot of that thing the next year. One year we did pigs. This year we didn't. We do a lot of meat chickens. Sometimes I may do 150. Sometimes I may do 50. So it just depends on where I'm at in that particular moment in my life.
So how does this work with the customers? You mentioned herd share. So is that they pitch in for the feed and pay you something for your trouble, and then they get whatever?
Yeah. So the way that the herd share model works in Tennessee is because, technically it's illegal to just sell you some milk, but you can drink the milk from your own cow. So what the herd share model does is it allows our members to buy in, and they technically own portions of the cow. And I am just the adjuster, which it means I'm the caretaker of the cows. And then they pay me to care for the cows, milk the cows, bottle the milk, and all that sort of stuff. And then they pick up whatever their allotted amount is for the week.
Oh,
So,
okay.
but I keep my members very informed. They know the names of the cows. They come and look at the cows. They take their kids around the farm when they come and pick up. They get to see everything. I'm very much an open door policy for my customers because I want them to feel comfortable with what they're getting.
So with one cow, how many families might be part owner of that one cow?
Well, it's technically like they own the whole herd. So right now I have 8 milking cows, and those 100 to 150 families, depending on where I'm at in the season, own the collective herd, if that makes sense.
Okay. And you do the same thing with chickens and everything else as far as the meat chickens?
Chickens you can sell outright. I could sell that on the side of the road. So that's one of those things that we process them. Yeah, I know. A little more bacteria involved in chicken, but you can sell that anywhere. But
wow.
Yeah, so we process those, and customers just buy them by the pound.
Okay, so same thing with pigs?
Same thing with pigs. Yeah. Well, I'm sorry. Pigs have to be done at a certain kind of processing. Like you either have to sell a half a pig, a whole pig, or if you're going to make it into cuts, you have to send that to a USDA inspected processor, is my understanding. I've only ever sold them by the half or the whole, so okay. I haven't ever tried to make cuts.
But the milk, the raw milk, that's the real issue, huh?
Oh, it's a hot topic, man. It is such a hot topic. I've had people tell me I was killing babies and that grandma was going to die if she drank the raw milk, and how I should be sued, and just all kinds of crazy stuff.
What did they think
on Facebook?
What did they think everybody drank for all those years?
Well, they can't seem to separate time periods. Like, pasteurization was a 18th century solution to an 18th century problem. Those cows were disgusting. They were sick. They were diseased. They were kept in CAFOs. They were fed spent grain, and they were kept in the cities in just nasty conditions where, of course, bacteria and diseases are going to thrive.
Right.
And kids died. I mean, that was a real thing. But now we have modern sanitation methods. We have strict hygienic protocols that we follow. We have refrigeration, for Pete's sake. They didn't refrigerate things.
Right.
And, the trick is we call it cold temp pasteurization, because the best way to keep milk clean is to cool it to the appropriate temperature within the allotted amount of time. Rule of thumb is under 40 degrees in less than 2 hours. Okay. Well, those of us who have chill tanks, we can chill our milk to under 40 degrees in 25 minutes. So, and it preserves the flavor. It keeps the bacteria from growing, anything that would grow in warmer milk. So we have technology that we didn't have back then.
Right. So what's health-wise, what's the difference in the raw milk and what we get in the store?
So pasteurized milk at the store, we learned in high school science that amino acids and proteins are lock and key. They fit together like a lock and key. Well, when you heat up milk to the crazy high temperatures that they heat it up to. Now, they don't just heat it up anymore to enough to pasteurize it. They want to like ultra high temp pasteurize stuff. And when you do that, you denature the protein and change its shape. And so it can no longer fit together, lock and key, like proteins and amino acids are supposed to. So when you ingest it, your body freaks out because it doesn't recognize it as a protein. And it's the same thing for homogenization. Homogenization is also a problem because when it spins everything, it changes the shape of the fat globules in the milk, and your body also can't recognize that. Dr. Berry believes that homogenization is actually a bigger problem than pasteurization. So, but I believe both are a key factor. And so a lot of my people who think that they are lactose intolerant actually are not. They're store-bought milk intolerant.
Ah, okay.
So
I was wondering about that.
When they drink my milk, they have zero problems.
So is it the homogenization or the pasteurization that causes more issues with lactose intolerance?
I believe it's a combination of both. And it probably depends on the person, what they're more sensitive to. But both are equally a problem because you're changing the natural shapes and the natural enzymes and all of the things that are in milk naturally, and turning it into something that's just a dead white milk-like product.
So they have to put vitamins and nutrients back into what they've homogenized and pasteurized, correct?
Correct. Yes, because they've killed all the good enzymes, they've killed all the good vitamins, they've killed everything that naturally comes in milk, and they have to add it back in order to make it have any nutritional value whatsoever.
Why do they do that? I mean, you explained why they started pasteurization, and I'm assuming maybe homogenization had some of the same background, but don't we know? Obviously, you know more now. Why are they still heating it as high as they are?
Well, I think it all comes down to industrialization. You know, you can't have 1,000 cows and keep the same level of sanitation that we have on our small farms, and they want to be able to truck it across the country.
Right.
So, you know, pasteurization in that instance to me makes sense. I would not want to drink milk from a cow that had, or a dairy that had 150 to 1,000 cows. They just can't keep it clean like we do. You know, because those of us who have less than 100 cows, we're able to manage everything much better. Okay. Of course, the big ag thinks that we're nasty, and we think that they're nasty. So it's one of those, you know, potato. But yeah, so it's basically just so they can keep it on the shelf longer. They can truck it across the country. It becomes one of those things that, you know, can now go to Canada, or Canada comes to us, or, you know, because Canada right now is not buying our dairy. So that was the total point of it, was centralization.
Okay. So is 100 cows, is that any 100 or less, that's the small dairy operation?
I mean, I would call that a larger dairy still. I mean, I have 10 cows.
Okay.
And that's what I milk. But I do know someone who has 100 cows that does raw milk, and, you know, and milks those and keeps perfect sanitation records, does testing on her milk, and does really, really well. So I mean, to me, I think kind of anything over that starts getting like, you know, they're just in muck and they never go out into the field. And
right. I guess my question is there a legal definition of okay?
No, there is not. Okay.
So you had a little incident with the state back in September. Do you want to tell us about that?
So yeah, I thought I was completely off the radar of the state because I was doing everything by the book. You know, my husband's an attorney, so we went through our herd share contracts. We were doing everything by the letter. And I was up at my house babysitting my grandson, and one of my workers sent me a message and said, "Hey, there's a card in your door," and sent me a picture of it. And I was like, "Oh, that's the Department of Agriculture. That's weird." And I honestly, in my naiveness, thought they were in the wrong place. Like, I thought they were lost and had landed at the wrong farm.
Right.
So I called, and the little guy answered the phone. And he said, "What's your name?" And I said, "Dawn Gorham." And he said, "What's your farm name?" And I said, "The Gorham Homestead." And he goes, "Oh." And I thought, oh, God.
The Gorham Homestead.
Okay. So he's like, "I've got to transfer you." And I thought, oh, boy, okay, here we go. So I had, my spidey senses were tingling. The hair on the back of my neck stood up. So he transferred me. And this other man came on, and he said, "So you're Dawn Gorham with the Gorham Homestead?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, I said, "What are you here for? Why did someone come by here?" And he said, "We're there to do an inspection." And I was like, "Inspection? I'm not subject to inspection because I'm a private herd share." And he said, yeah, we're not worried about your milk. Your milk sales are fine." I was like, "Well, okay, what's the problem?" He said, "We're concerned that you might be making butter."
Say that again. You must what?
You might be making butter.
Oh, my. The horror, huh?
Like, and I sat there a second, and I knew what the AG opinion that came out in like 2009 or it might have been 19. I'm sorry. I'm not sure what year it was, but the AG opinion basically said that if you are an owner of a cow, that you can make products and consume those products. So I was familiar with that, so I knew or felt like I was in the right. So I was like, yes, I'm making butter and yogurt and coffee creamer and buttermilk and cheese and ice cream. And he was like, "Oh, no, you can't do that." And I said, "What do you mean you can't? I can't do that." We started going back and forth. Like, my lawyer or my legal side started coming out. And I saw pretty quickly that we weren't going to get anywhere, that he was firmly holding his ground and I was firmly holding mine. So I said, "You know what? I think you need to call my lawyer, who also happens to be my husband. And here's his cell phone number." And he kind of sat there for a second, and he goes, "Okay, well, what was that? What's his name? And what was that number?" And so I gave it to him again. And I said, "Y'all probably shouldn't come back on my property." And he was like, "Thank you, ma'am." And he hung up. And so I got on the phone, and I started trying to get in touch with my state representatives. Got in touch with Michelle Renault first, and Samantha Baker helped me to make some of those network connections, and all of this started happening really quickly. Got in touch with Jody Barrett to let him know what was going on, and what I didn't realize, though, was the same day that the inspector was here, the old ag commissioner was going out, and the new ag commissioner was being sworn in. And I believe it was the same day or the day after. So I can't really be mad at him, because I honestly believe he did not know at the time what the inspectors were doing.
You mean the new ag commissioner? The
new ag commissioner, and Andy Holt. I honestly, he's just trying to get in there and get his feet set and figure out what's what. But anyways, Michelle got in touch with him, and he's pretty much, I had a phone conversation with him, and he's told me that he assures me that it would happen to no other farmer in Tennessee again, and that he was going to have his agents do Fourth Amendment training. Oh, that's what so I called, and come to find out, I'm sorry, I got to go back to tell another detail of the story.
Okay.
Come to find out, the little agent had been here and gone through all my stuff.
All your
Gone
stuff.
through all of my
What stuff are you talking about?
She went through my refrigerators. She went through, opened up everything that I had to see what I had without my permission. She illegally searched my property.
Wow.
She had no warrant. She had no administrative order. She had nothing, no judicial anything, no judicial grounds to stand on. It was simply because she was being nosy.
So
And she wanted to know what I had.
So did she do this on her own volition, or was she sent by, who was she sent by to do this? She works for the Department of Ag, but who sent her to do this?
That is still a mystery. Nobody can tell me why she came here in the first place. Other than they had been through my website, they had combed through all of my Facebook posts to see, and I don't know if it's because I had come on their radar as a raw milk person, so they decided to scour all of my stuff.
Right.
So I have no idea what prompted them to come here in the first place.
So what was the interaction like when you finally saw her?
I didn't see her. I didn't know he told on himself. I didn't know that she had gone through my stuff until he told me. Like, he literally told me on the phone that they had saw everything that I had. Now, she hadn't made it back to the office yet, but apparently she called and told him what her findings were.
So what did they find that they were concerned about?
Butter, any dairy products. They didn't want me making dairy products out of the milk. They're fine with me fine with me giving milk to my herd share members. I can't say selling milk, but they're fine with that. But they said by the statute that I was not allowed to turn that same milk into any other form of dairy. I couldn't put chocolate in it. I couldn't freeze it. It had to be raw, fluid, white milk.
Is that what the law says?
No.
What does the law say?
The law just says that an owner of a hoofed mammal may consume the milk for that mammal and may turn it into whatever products, dairy products that they choose. That's not the exact wording, but that's what I think is TCA 53-3-119. But that's basically what it says. Now, it is vague. And it is a little ambiguous, but I believe that Frank Nicely, when they crafted that law, I believe they left it vague on purpose so that there was some gray room for the herd share people to be able to do a little more. Because I think that if they had pushed for all of the products at the same time when they created that law,
right,
they might not have gotten it passed.
Okay. Could be. Now, so you never actually had a personal confrontation with anybody from AG other than on the phone from the Ag Department?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So we're not talking armed agents showing up with anything like or anything like that, right? There was no confrontation.
No.
Okay.
That would have been bad. Yeah. No, I never saw her, and it's probably a good thing that I didn't, because I might have acted ugly. But now I've had a chance to, because I didn't think it would happen to me.
Right.
And so, but that's one thing I'm trying to really push farmers to prepare for. If that scenario happens, and now we know that it will, and it can, because it's not just happened to me. It's happened to someone else after me, down in your neck of the woods. I believe she's in Henry, and not Henry County, but Henry, Tennessee.
Yeah, it's Henry County. That's Henry County.
But the agent showed up on her property and went into her milk house and went through all of her stuff. And it just so happened her husband came out, saw him coming out, his little backpack on, and was like, "What are you doing?" And he said, "I'm inspecting." And he said they'd been looking for them for a long time, that they thought they were in Camden, but recently figured out they were in Henry.
So they're taking stuff back to a lab or what? And they're coming in here and taking samples?
They're not touching anything. They're just looking.
Oh, okay.
They're doing recon, I think.
Okay. But now that was after, when did you talk to the new commissioner? You talked to Andy Holt.
Andy Holt. So that happened to another farmer about a week after I talked to Andy Holt. but I don't know if the memo had gotten out yet.
Right.
He is aware of it.
Okay. Are you hearing about other cases?
I'm hearing some. So there was another farmer that told me that she reached out to her local. She reached out to the Department of Agriculture, and what she was looking for was some guidance on how to craft a herd share agreement. And of course, they don't do that, which is fine. But they spent the next 30 minutes berating her about how raw milk is dangerous and how she can't make products. And then they sent her an email and copied her local extension office on it. And they collectively sent her emails telling her that she could only provide raw fluid white milk to her customers and that she could not do any products.
Is that the commissioner's position as well? Is that Andy Holt's position as well?
No, he and he didn't tell me not to tell it, so that's on him. But he alluded to me that he didn't care if herd share people made products out of their dairy or not. It come from the same cows and the same bulk tank. So, as far as I can tell, he's a little more on the food freedom side.
Right.
But, he's also beholden to Big Ag, and Big Ag wants to be able to have a piece of the pie as well. So I don't know how all that's going to play out over the next year or two.
So, but the state has to be all on one sheet as far as this is, and if he's the head guy, he needs to be the one kind of setting the standard, right? Or enforcing whatever the legal standard is. Yes,
and the problem is there's multiple interpretations of what people believe the law is. But what I believe has happened is the health department put out some guidance, and that guidance said that it had to be raw fluid white milk, and then how to test it and how to do it, produce it properly, and then it was also all of the dangers of raw milk, was in their guidance. What happened, I believe, was the county extension offices, UT extension offices, and the Department of Agriculture have picked up that language and started running with it and regurgitating it as if it's law, and it's not. But we know that there's a huge difference between guidance and law.
Right.
And they can push guidance on you as much as they want to, but they can't force it upon you as law. They couldn't write you a citation for going against what they believe their guidance is. So that's what we're telling all of our farmers, to do, is just to ignore that. It's just guidance. This is what the law says, and you can do those things based on the law.
Okay. And so the law lays out specifically how you have to process the milk, or I don't know if process is the right word, but how you're supposed to handle everything and how you're supposed to test it.
There's some there's some stuff in the statute that basically says that we have to have herd share agreements with all of our customers, contracts, and in that contract it has to have that statutory warning to let them know that raw milk can be contaminated with certain bacterias, and that people who are immunocompromised, pregnant, things like that probably shouldn't drink the milk because it might affect them differently than a person with a normal immune system. But really, as far as requirements on herd share members, that's our only requirement. Those of us who test and do some of the other things that we do it because we hold ourselves to a higher standard, not because the state requires it.
Right. Now, the herd share owners, they're the ones who actually own the cow. You said you were just kind of like the, maintainer.
I'm the adjuster.
And so the law says currently that the owners may use the raw milk or process, but it doesn't say they can't do anything else with it, right? They can't say.
Right. If the legislature had wanted to forbid it, they could have, but they didn't.
Okay.
So in our opinion, that leaves that wide open for us to be able to do because some of my customers want yogurt. Yeah. They don't want to buy an extra gallon of yogurt to go turn it into yogurt. They would rather me do that for them. Right. So, and to me, it makes sense. What's weird about the whole thing is, according to the way that the Department of Agriculture sees it, me, the farmer, can't turn the milk into yogurt or butter or whatever, but you, the owner, could pick up your milk from me and take it to my next door neighbor and have them turn it into yogurt and butter for you, and that's just fine. Somebody who may or may not even know how to properly handle dairy products or make dairy products. But for some reason, they don't believe that the actual person who handles the milk knows, all of the things about the milk. We shouldn't be doing that for our customers or for our herd share members.
Only a government agency would come to that conclusion.
It makes no sense. Absolutely makes no sense. And that's where our money is. I don't make any money in selling gallons of milk. I don't. I barely break even. But when my customers want me to turn it into cheese or ice cream or things like that, that's when I actually get some value added products for my people. And if they take that away from us, it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt small dairies a lot.
Right. So herd share cost, you said it varies with the size of the herd. You have what? You said 8?
Yes, I have 8 that I'm milking right now.
Okay. And how many owners of those 8? Are there 8 owners of those cattle?
No, there's depending on what time of the year it is, how many customers I have. I'll just go with 100. So I have 100 different families who are partial owners of the entire herd.
Okay.
So it's not per cow. They basically own tiny little stock shares of the whole thing.
Okay.
And they pay a monthly maintenance fee towards that. They do a $50 buy-in is what my buy-in is. Okay. And that buys them ownership into the herd. And then monthly, they pay me, my maintenance fee is $48 a month, and that gets them a gallon a week, which basically comes out to be about $11 a gallon. And so each person pays me as monthly.
Right.
And if they pick up their milk, fine. If they don't, fine.
Okay. And then, of course, you charge extra for the other stuff, cheese, butter, whatever.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
But that's where you make your profit at, is doing something with the milk other than just selling the raw milk, because you said you just break even on that.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I do at this point. Now, once I get to the point where I've got some of my equipment paid off, because I'm less than 5 years into the dairy stuff. So I'm still having to buy equipment. Still, I'm still in the growing phase.
Right.
Eventually I'll be able to make milk or make money just on milk, but it's going to be hard.
For an operation your size, how long does it normally take to start making profit?
I would say probably 7 or 8 years because we're not eligible for any grants. The TAEP grants that they give for farmers and all that kind of stuff. If you're a raw milk farmer, you're not eligible for any of that stuff. So we have to out of pocket, which is fine. I don't really want, grants for that sort of stuff. But everything has to be out of pocket, and dairy stuff is expensive. I just recently put in an on-farm lab so that I can test my milk right here on my farm. And that was another, $1,500 of expense. And then when you're getting into the milking equipment and the cleaning supplies and the chill tanks and, all of that stuff, it just really adds up. So I'd say 7 or 8 years.
Okay. So do you see expanding on anything anytime soon?
I'm maxed out.
You're maxed out?
I don't have any more room for any cows. I'm completely maxed out on what I can do with the dairy. I'm hoping that I'll be able to grow other aspects of our farm. I loved doing the kids camp last year. We had 15 or 20 young teenage girls, that came and stayed with me. It was a day camp, so they were just here during the day. But 2 weeks of just teaching them good old-fashioned skills, and those girls prayed together over lunch. They were just so good, and that brought me so much joy. So I'm hoping that things like that is things that I don't have to have more acreage. Right. I just need to have more time. Yeah. Is where I'm hoping to expand.
So how many people work on the homestead with you?
Oh my goodness, I hire homeschoolers mostly. I have tenants that live here that were really good friends of mine before they moved onto the property. So they live here in the camper and are lots and lots of help to me. I have two homeschool kids that work. I have a homeschool mom that works, and then one of my neighbors that works. So I think I have 6 different employees that are, they're all part-time, just a couple hours here and a couple hours there. So lots of folks that come and go, all the time.
Right. So basically, as far as the state's concerned, you're going to have to kind of see if the ag commissioner keeps his word about not harassing small farmers, and you do anticipate any legislation, or you have any that you think should be passed on this?
I honestly don't know. I've been talking to some of our legislators because, I'm sort of naive to how the legislative process works. I'm really thankful to have Michelle Renault in our corner, and have Jody Barrett and some of the other ones that were able to explain to me how certain things work.
Right.
I don't know what's coming down the pike. I don't know if it's a good idea to open back up the code as it is.
Right.
I don't know. I'm going to have to let those that know best handle those things. We've got a really great lobbyist that is a lobbyist for the Weston A. Price that is one of our biggest advocates for raw milk. Her name's Elizabeth Murphy.
I know her.
So we've got some great people. Do you? Yes. Yeah. So we got some great people that are on the ball. And it's just, my role, I feel like, is to be kind of that liaison between, because I don't really want to be in politics, but I love farmers and I love small farmers and I want them to thrive. So, and I've got a very lengthy legal background. So I'm kind of hoping that I can bridge that gap,
right, and
help their voices to be heard, with our legislators.
Now, you did the Raw Milk Summit there at your farm about a month ago. Are there some other events coming up across the state, similar events?
So we actually didn't do it here because I didn't have enough space. We did it at, I know that's kind of what it was portrayed to be. We did it at another farmer's farm that was kind enough to volunteer and open it up for us. But we have upcoming in, I believe February, we're going to do one in East Tennessee, and we'll have some of the same speakers that we had here in Middle Tennessee. We're going to invite Monty Fritz again. We're going to have Michelle Renault. We're going to have Elizabeth Murphy, Suzanne Thompson, Sean Day, all of the raw milk advocates we're going to have, but we are expanding it beyond just raw milk. It's going to be the Freedom for Farmers, and it's going to be for all small farms who are trying to produce on a small level so that we can bring everyone together under one big tent.
And Big Ag getting really too friendly to this idea, are they?
Not really. I think a lot of times Big Ag doesn't like competition, and they don't like us being able to sell to our neighbor because it stops the person from going to the grocery store, which stops, their profit.
Right.
But what I love about, and here's why I don't really want raw milk legalized across the board. I know that's what people say in their mind. I mean, a lot of people say it, let's just legalize it. But in my mind, there's some problems with that, because if they just did a broad stroke and legalized raw milk, first of all, it would put us small farmers out of business, which, I mean, I'm okay, I can do something else, but there's some people who can't. And because the big farmers would be able to sell their milk to Walmart, and then people would be able to get it for $3 a gallon. Well, we're not going to be able to sell ours where we're barely making any margins at all.
Right.
So that's one problem with it, but that's not the biggest problem. The biggest problem is that it removes personal contact. When my people come to my farm to pick up their milk, they know where their milk is coming from.
Right.
They see the cows. They see the conditions that they're living in. They see where I bottle. They see everything about They're making a fully informed decision when they're buying their milk from me. In turn, I see the faces of these little kids who are getting out of the car and these pregnant mamas, and that in turn makes me much more conscious about how I'm handling my milk.
Right.
Because there's that face-to-face interaction. When you're buying milk from a grocery store, you don't know where it came from. You don't know how it was handled. You don't know if the cows were skinny, disease-looking, mangy creatures or these nice big fat jerseys like I've got.
Right.
Also, those farmers never see their customers. So there's no incentive for them to be as careful as we are on a small farm.
Right.
So for me, that's why I don't think the broad brush of just legalizing it across the board. I love the herd share model. I do believe small farms should be able to sell just directly off their farm. But I believe that person-to-person contact because raw milk can be dangerous if it's not handled properly. So that's my spill on that.
Okay. Any closing thoughts?
In closing, I mean, the basis of all of it is the freedom to feed our families what we choose. The government should never interfere in what we put in our bodies or make us put something in our bodies that we don't want.
Right.
I mean, it's just all about freedom and autonomy, period. And I should be able, especially in the economy that we're living in now, if I want to feed my neighbor, I should be able to feed my neighbor, and the government should stay out of it.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand that there has to be standards, especially for things that are being mass produced. But when it comes to people like me or people who sell at farmers markets or people who have CSAs or, farm membership, private memberships, those people shouldn't be held to that higher standard that the mass producers should be, because the risk just isn't there.
Right.
Where like it is with that big stuff. So I really want to see farmers come together. One of the things is that dairies in Tennessee, and I don't know if I told you this previously, but 20 years ago, there were thousands of dairies in Tennessee. And now, and there were no small micro dairies, raw dairies like we are. Now, the grade A dairies are down to about 150, and the grade B dairies are down to 35.
Wow.
And there's over 750 small dairies like me. So now we are the majority. We might not be big money and we might not be big number of cows, but we're big in vastness as far as how we spread across the state. So I'm hoping what will come out of all of this when we have our East Tennessee conference, we have our West Tennessee conference, and then we start, backtracking in between, is just finding a way for the small farmer to have a voice within the legislature, because, Big Ag has Farm Bureau, and Farm Bureau goes in and lobbies for those people and tells, what their customers or what their members want.
Right.
All that kind of stuff. Well, we really don't have that, because Farm Bureau never asked me what I want. I'm a member of Farm Bureau. I have not ever been asked one thing about what was important to me, not once.
Right.
I love them. I mean, I have my insurance with them, but they don't care. They don't care about me.
Right.
And so I'm hoping that eventually we're going to have, a voice for all of us little people.
Well, hopefully that'll work out. Maybe the new commissioner will be a help with that. We'll have to see. Hey, thanks for being with us. Thanks for what you do. Maybe we can have you back in the future. Hope your business grows and does well.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you.
Glad to have you. I want to thank the audience for taking the time to watch our program tonight. It doesn't cost anything to subscribe, so please be sure to hit the like and subscribe button as well as the notification bell so you never miss an episode. We appreciate your support. Thanks again to Jonathan and Mary League for their financial support starting back in July. They've been a huge help. We really appreciate it. Check out our audio podcasts on iHeartRadio, Spotify, and other platforms as well. Sign up for our weekly newsletter at our website, teeninformer.com. Find and follow us on Facebook and Twitter. On Tuesday, December 2nd, at the Jefferson County Library, David Seal will be hosting legislative training. This is important information that everyone should know so that you can effectively track legislation during the upcoming session. The Stewart Henry chapter of the Tennessee Firearms Association will meet this Thursday, December 4th, 7 p.m. at Holly Park on Highway 79 in Paris. You don't have to be a member to attend, but you can come and learn how to be heard by our legislature on protecting your right to keep and bear arms. Our first guest next week on Monday, December 8th is former Marine and Army veteran, as well as a Nashville undercover police officer, and he was also a recent 7th District Congressional candidate for the primary. We're talking about Joe Lewers. He's going to join us to talk about the special election and much more. And for our second show next week, Kerry Wallowitz joins us to tell the other story of Buford Pusser. He has some serious issues with claims made by Mike Elam on this show a few weeks ago, and so we're going to have him on to hear the other story. Like Mike, he is not originally from here and has done his own research, so it should be interesting. If you're in the 7th District, remember, vote tomorrow. We got to keep the commie out. Hope you can join us next week. That's it for now. Good night from Paris, Tennessee, that is.